Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Lucy. I am a Melbourne-based psychologist and I specialise in the intersection of the science of psychology and Islamic principles so that we can draw on both domains to achieve the best possible mental health and well-being. Now in this video, I wanted to talk about the idea of depression and what sometimes people will say is it's just a weakness of faith, that if a person just have strong faith, then they wouldn't be depressed. And over many years in the Muslim community, I've heard that sentiment come up in different spaces where I've heard either speakers or people in the community say things like, there's no such thing as depression, it's just weakness of Iman, with the idea that if a person has strong faith, that they would never be depressed. And I've also had many clients over the years who have said that a similar thing has been said to them by family or friends when they've opened up and said, I'm feeling very depressed at the moment. That sometimes the response that they get is, well, if you had strong Iman, if you had strong faith, then you wouldn't be depressed, that you would be in a state of gratitude and you would be thankful. And whilst I have no doubt that when people say these things, that it's said with good intention, and I believe that there's also some truth to this, that obviously when we can draw upon faith to know that God is there for us, that we can seek help from Allah through prayers, through reading Quran, through connecting to the belief that things may be good for us even when we struggle. So a sense of gratitude. All of these things can help when a person is going through a period of depression. At the same time, when this is said, sometimes people don't realize that not only can it be incredibly unhelpful to the person who's going through a period of depression, it can also be quite damaging in many ways to a person's sense of hope that they can get through that particular period in their life. Often when I hear that people will say that this has been said to them when they've opened up about their depression, what it's left them feeling is a greater sense of hopelessness. That often people will say, well, I'm going through a depression and now I'm being told I don't have strong faith. So it's even worse for me now that I'm not only am I struggling with this mental health condition, I'm struggling with depression, but also I'm being told that I'm not a person of strong faith. And there are many reasons why we need to look at this and actually understand that depression is rarely just a simple situation where it's black and white and there are simple reasons and there are simple answers to it. When a person is depressed, there can be a lot of things that have played into them coming to that particular state of being. It's generally not a case of someone just being in a state where they're ungrateful or they're just lacking faith. It's normally many factors that have come together. And for every person, for every individual, it's different. And so we can't generalize about everybody's situation. There are people who have gone through extremely difficult situations, and we don't, unless we really sit with that person, we may not understand that these are things that have shattered their sense of self, shattered their worldview, really shaken their sense of safety in the world, and that it can also then affect and does tend to affect the actual chemistry of the brain for that period that they're depressed. From brain scans, we know that when a person is depressed, it actually changes the brain chemistry. So certain areas of the brain, particularly areas that we need to be able to problem solve and to be able to have higher order thinking, more complex thinking, those areas literally become depressed. So we see less activity in those parts of the brain. So a person who is depressed often finds it hard to be able to think clearly, to be able to focus, to be able to even make simple decisions. And so to say to a person, well, you just need to increase your Iman and that's going to fix things, can be incredibly unhelpful. when a person might be in a state where they're in a kind of brain fog, where they can't actually access some of those more complex thinking, where they're finding it very difficult to feel any sense of joy or any sense of hope or optimism. And it's definitely not a quick fix. When people are in a state of depression, it's not something that they can just snap out of. And when people are going through this, they would absolutely love to have a solution where they can snap out of it, because in really severe cases, people can struggle to get out of bed. They can struggle to just do basic day-to-day tasks like having a shower or preparing food or doing the absolute basics that you would need to do on a day-to-day basis. And so when we say things like, well, you just need to strengthen your iman, it shows a real lack of understanding that they may be having much more severe difficulties than what we can see. One of the examples from Quran that I like to draw on when we're talking about depression is the story of Yunus alayhi salam, when he was in the belly of the fish, or the belly, sometimes called the belly of the whale, in the depths of the ocean. That when he was thrown overboard from the ship and he was swallowed by the fish and he was in the depths of the ocean. I think that's an amazing analogy for what a person can feel like when they're depressed. So what we might imagine for Yunus alayhi salam, that he had in his state of frustration, that in his mission the people were not listening and he left, and a series of events happened where he ended up on a ship, and then they had decided through drawing lots to throw him overboard. So we can imagine that he would have been thinking that this was a cause of some of his choices, some of his actions that had led him into this situation, and realizing that he had abandoned his mission. So feeling a sense of incredible regret, perhaps feeling a sense of hopelessness, because we can't imagine being in a state in the belly of a fish, in the depths of the ocean, and feeling like we've made a terrible, terrible mistake, and being in a place that is so deep and so dark that you can't imagine how you're going to get out. And I mean, being in the belly of a fish in the depth of the ocean, you could not imagine how you are going to get out of that situation. And so when a person is in that sort of state, we can imagine, well, it's like saying to a person who's in the depths of the ocean, in the belly of a fish, just have strong iman, when they can't see a way out. They can't see how life could get any better. And they might be in a state of self-blame. They might be thinking of all the things that they could have done differently. There might have been circumstances that were out of their control. They might have had people that betrayed them. And in a state where they were incredibly weakened. And so for some people, it's they're almost just holding on every day. And we need to come and approach people who open up to us with depression, and understand that they may be going through something that we could never imagine, or being in such a deep, dark place that we couldn't imagine how hopeless they feel. And they might seem okay from the outside. They might just be presenting like you or I, but we don't know the darkness that they may be in. And just saying to someone, well, you just have to have strong faith, that might tip a person over the edge in terms of their coping, and may actually prolong their recovery if they start then in a state of being incredibly self-blaming, which most people who are depressed often are feeling a sense of hopelessness and a sense of self-blame. So when we approach people and they open up to us, it's far better that we seek to understand and ask what they're going through, if they feel okay to open up. And rather than for us to offer advice straight away, to ask them what they need, but also to remind them that God is there for them, rather than saying, well, you need to have strong faith, reminding them that God is there for them and that you believe that they will get through it. Because often when we're going through a really tough time, what can help is other people having hope. Because when a person is struggling to hold on to hope, and a lot of times when people are depressed, they really do struggle to feel like there's a light, there's a way out. Just like we can imagine Yunus alayhi salam in the belly of a fish, that you could imagine how would you even begin to think about getting out of that situation. So reminding people that there is hope and that there is support, and coming and offering that sense of, if you need anything or if I can do anything to help, even just sit and listen, then I'm here for you, rather than saying, well, you just should go and pray more and read Quran, and making them feel like they're not good enough. Now, what's interesting about the story of Yunus alayhi salam, that when he turned to Allah and in praising Allah, in seeking forgiveness, Allah then took Yunus out of that situation. But what we have to remember is that when he was brought upon the shore, he was in a terrible state, and we know that Allah provided him with fruits for his recovery. And again, if we think about what he'd been through, that he'd been in the belly of a massive fish, and one of the strongest acids in the world is the stomach acids of fish, because they swallow whole fish and they break it down. So his skin, we can only imagine what state he would have been, being surrounded by the stomach acid of a whale, that his skin would have been in a terrible condition. He would have been most likely perhaps terribly malnourished. He would have been exhausted at the very least. And we know that he needed that recovery time. He didn't just get out and say, okay, I'm good to go. He actually had to spend time to physically recover. And that's also one of the things that people don't understand about depression. It affects every part of the person, not just their mind. It affects their mind, it affects their emotions. It affects their even physically. We know people often will have certain pains and exhaustion in their bodies, that they struggle even to get up. As I said, they can struggle to even get up and have a shower. So there can be an extended recovery time. And so just as Yunus alayhi salam needed that time for rest and recovery and to slowly rebuild his strength, so do to people with depression, that they often can't just bounce back and snap out of that situation, that they do need time. And we are, as Muslims, encouraged to deal with each other with love and mercy. And particularly when people are going through a hard time of mental illness, that's the time when we need to show the most compassion, and be realizing that the road to recovery can be a long one, but giving people hope that other people have gone through similar things, and whilst it's hard and they need a lot of support, and they might need support from different areas, that over time, as they slowly begin to recover and they slowly start to regain their energy and they start to regain that mental clarity, that inshallah, that they will feel better. So when we can come again with compassion, as we want Allah to show us compassion, that we should be showing each other compassion for going through difficulties and mental illness. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and have a blessed and beautiful day. Thank you.